Kevin, the music is cut. Kevin, the music is cut. I don't have music on. Kevin, the music is out. I think you do. Do you need it? Okay. All right. Waiting for your heads up. Somebody been ready for the please. All right.
No.
What did he say? I'm not looking now.
Good morning, everybody. We will start in just 1 minute. Again, we will start in 1 minute. If you could please quiet your cell phones, and please no food or drink in the auditorium. So if you have anything, please dispose of it now. Thank you.
Hello and welcome. I'm pleased to be here today at the Women in Federal IT and Cyber event and be among my fellow tribe members here at the USDA building in Washington, D.C. I'd like to welcome the folks here in Washington as well as the folks online seeing us through YouTube. And I want to thank the CIO Council for sponsoring this event. I think it's an important issue. We're going to hear a diverse set of perspectives on what we all know to be a critical, important contributor to the missions that we all have of delivering outstanding service to the American people through federal IT while keeping their information and the mission safe and secure in the cyber realm. I want to thank especially Secretary Perdue, Don Bice, Gary Washington, and the folks here at USDA for welcoming us here in this lovely building. As many of you all know, USDA is playing a critical role in some of the signature activities we're doing around IT modernization as a lighthouse agency and a leadership role on the CIO Council. So we really appreciate you welcoming us here for this important event. I'd like to thank the CIO Council and the entire team for helping coordinate this event, and my own office of OFCIO for the great work that this team has done in putting this event on. I'd especially like to thank our panelists today. Again, we have a diverse group of panelists with great experiences both in the public sector as well as in the private sector. And the challenges we face around diversity and contributions to mission critical activities are something that these women and the brave men who work with them work on every day. Lastly, I want to do a shameless plug for the President's Management Agenda. We're working on 3 elements in the executive branch that bring together many of the issues we're going to talk about today. IT modernization is at the forefront of what we're doing to modernize government in the 21st century so we can focus on mission. but it's supported by critical work around data, accountability, and transparency, where we also have great opportunities to expand diversity and bring more women in to the ranks of data scientists and big data thinkers in government. And last and most important, the role of the workforce in actually contributing to the mission and the service that we need to do what Americans expect in the 21st century, create world-class customer experiences, whether they're for veterans or farmers or housing aid recipients. We need to bring diversity into that mission because we know empirically we get better outcomes from that. So with that, I'm going to turn the podium over to my dear friend Suzette Kent, the federal CIO. Thank you so much.
Behind here. Thank you, Margaret. And ladies and our brave gentlemen that are here, I want to welcome you as well to our nation's capital. And we're thrilled that we have folks that are actually watching along on YouTube as well. I am Suzette Kent, I'm the federal CIO, and it's my pleasure to be here in a celebration of National Women's Month, but more to share the stories of these accomplished women from across the spectrum of roles in IT and cyber. Each of you here, and those of you who are watching, are individuals who are critical to the fabric of our federal cyber and IT workforce. You're part of one of the most important missions that's facing our nation, ensuring our technology is the best in the world, while we're combating and protecting our assets from increasingly sophisticated threats. It's a battle that we do every day. There's no aspect of our lives today that's actually not touched by technology. Our homes, our health, we're here in the USDA, the food that we eat, the people we communicate with, and most importantly for this crowd, the work that we do every day. We have the challenge and the privilege of ensuring that our nation's data is protected and the services that the government delivers actually meets the expectations of our citizens. Margaret mentioned the PMA, and that's been one of the most exciting parts of the rollout, is to get out and talk to citizens and understand what they expect and what they expect us to deliver. This administration and our lawmakers have continuously recognized the importance of cyber and IT modernization through recent mandates, new funding vehicles, and operating guidance that gives us an unprecedented opportunity. But with that opportunity also comes a challenge and high expectations. So recently, as Margaret mentioned, we've been rolling out the President's Management Agenda. IT modernization and workforce transformation have been front and center in those dialogues. So why are we here today, and why are women so important in that journey? As you think about it, we're actually embarking on the largest transformation in the world. And more importantly, results have proven that women are more effective collaborators, and what you deliver is actually better. I'm going to share a couple of facts. So to accomplish the things that are in front of us, it doesn't take just superior technical talent, which all of you have, and we know we have. But it takes the ability to work as a team, to break down silos in order to actually produce results. So here's the facts. A recent Harvard study found that one of the best ways for any organization to boost their ability to transform themselves and their products is by involving women and having a culturally diverse team. Another study, it looked at Fortune 500 companies and showed teams with equal numbers of men and women were more likely to be creative, share knowledge, and fulfill the team's objectives. So now let's bring it down to what we're doing here in the government. Last year it was announced in the private sector, the number of women who held CIO roles declined by 3 percentage points. That's pretty sad. Declined, despite the focus. But I'm happy to report here in the federal government, the number of women in cyber and IT positions is 40%. So we gotta give yourselves a hand on that. it far surpasses where we are in the private sector. So particularly, if we take a look, our sponsors here today, the CIO Council, those of you who have time, look at the webpage, and when you look at the members of the CIO Council, that's a picture of diversity. The entire team, and in that entire team, 35% of the leaders are women. So these facts actually bring us back to a more fundamental point, and a point personally why I'm here. It's the mission that we serve, and you're going to hear about that through all of the panel discussions. What motivates everyone every day is the mission that they serve. So to most of you in the crowd, I'm a new person in the federal IT world. IT transformation has been the center of my entire career, but I am here for my passion about that mission. And we do have one badass mission to serve. We are here to drive government technology into the 21st century, and we're here at a historic time. So thank you for letting me make a few comments and share some thoughts. I'm really excited about the program that we have because it is all about the mission, and it's about celebrating each one of you here today. So first we're gonna have a panel that's gonna talk about what we can do to spark interest in women in IT careers. We have to start from the very first in our educational systems, but we have to do things to attract women and help them understand how exciting the opportunities are and what a fantastic environment this is. Second, we're going to bring up some of those fantastic CIOs that I talked about, and they're going to share ways that we can work together to build future tech leaders. And I'm going to ask you for one other quick round of applause, because not only can we field a full panel of women CIOs that's going to talk to you, every one of them that will be up here have also been named one of FedScoop's top women in federal technology. So fantastic ladies. And then finally, we're actually going to end with a little bit of a fireside chat. I'm excited to ask three women who are trailblazers, they're new leaders and aspiring leaders, to share with us their thoughts about starting this journey or new phases in the journey of IT and the federal technology. So now, as I ask the first panel, if you guys would kind of move up to the stage, I'm going to ask each of you in the audience and those watching on YouTube to do a couple of things. Focus on the stories that inspire you. Celebrate the victories of your peers that are here in this room, and listen to what may be useful for your own journey. So as they're coming up, come on, I'm going to turn over to Danielle Santos, who will be moderating our first panel. I'm going to move this to the side. There we go, so you guys can make it over there. She joined the federal government through the very prestigious Scholarship for Service Cyber Corps program. I'm pleased that she is now one of the program managers for the National Initiative for Cyber Education, and she's paving the way for our next generation of cyber professionals. So please join me in welcoming her and our fantastic panel to the stage. Thank you.
I'm a little short. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for coming out today. Thank you for those that are listening in online. I'm really excited to introduce this amazing panel we have for you to kick off the morning. This panel will focus on the importance of engaging and inspiring young women to enter technology and cybersecurity careers, and how the federal IT community can better support them. So first, furthest to the left here, we have Jason Gray, who serves as the U.S. Department of Education Chief Information Officer. Jason has over 20 years of experience in the information technology, cybersecurity, and healthcare administration fields. He is also a prominent member of several federal workforce committees focused on improving IT and cybersecurity education opportunities across America. Sitting next to him, we have Renee Wynn, who serves as, sitting next to him, we have Joanne Collins-Smee, who serves as the Acting Director of Technology Transformation Services and Deputy Commissioner of the Federal Acquisition Service at the General Services Administration. Joanne brings a wealth of diverse thought leadership to the federal enterprise with 25 years of private sector experience. Sitting next to Joanne is Renee Wynn, who serves as NASA's Chief Information Officer, where she's been an IT change leader for the world's most prestigious civilian space programs and research centers. Renee has over 28 years of federal service and works with her agency to increase women in science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM. And last, furthest to the right, we have Dr. Davina Pruitt-Mental. Davina is the lead for academic engagement at the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education office at NIST within the Department of Commerce. Davina holds a PhD in Education Technology Policy from the University of Maryland and has dedicated her career to conducting research on student and educator cyber awareness and developing programs to help increase the cybersecurity workforce pipeline. So can I please get a round of applause to welcome our panel? Thank you. And just to quickly gauge the audience, I wanted to see who in the room was a current technology or IT or cybersecurity worker. Great. So we have a lot of existing folks here, and anyone who's not in the field yet but interested in getting into the field. Very few. So a lot of folks here, you've been in the field and maybe you want to be mentors. So hopefully focusing in on how we get more young women in IT, we can get a lot of pointers and resources to learn how we can do that. So I want to kick off the panel with a question of, when you were younger, what inspired you to get into the technology or cybersecurity fields? And maybe as a follow-up to that, you could describe what's the coolest thing you do now that you are in the field. So what inspired you to get into the field, and what's the coolest thing you've done in the field? So to kick that off, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Joanne.
Okay, thanks. So what inspired me to get into technology, it goes way back to my childhood. I'm one of four, the youngest of four.
Joanne, could you maybe get closer to the mic?
Is that okay? No? No one has ever told me to speak louder. It's just what can you hear me now? I sound like that commercial. Yes? Okay. No. So I don't think this is on. Is it? Okay. I'm hollering now. Can you hear me?
Testing.
It's me. I need that deep voice thing going on, which I apparently don't have. Okay, I'm going to try again. So what inspired me to get into technology? We're going to have a workaround here. Okay.
Testing.
Okay. There we go. Thank you. Okay. For the sixth time, what inspired me to get into technology? I'm the youngest of four daughters, and I grew up in the Bronx, New York. Anybody from New York City? Yay! Okay. And when I grew up, in my household, girl power was alive and well because there was only daughters, right? Again, any of you from an all-girl family? Right? So it's kind of, you were brought up that you could do anything because we could do anything. And when so that was fine through up until I was about 12. And then when I was 13, I went to a parochial high school in the Bronx. And it was separated between boys and girls. And I was told that these were the classes I could take. And by the way, my friends that were boys that were in there had a different list of classes. One of them was physics. And I was just be damned if they could do something that the girls couldn't do. So I started a little rebellion, and I got in the physics class, and I did not do well in the physics class. And my friends that were boys, actually, some of them helped me through that class, and I'm fine to say that. In the end, it all worked out well. I passed, it all worked out well. But my interest in technology started at that young age, but also that feeling of, hey, there's a lot of really smart women that are being left behind here because they're not as obnoxious as me, right? So that feeling of we're wasting 50% of the population in terms of people that could be making contributions stuck with me from a very young age. And that's, how I got interested in technology. And this was way before technology as we know it was here. So I've been fortunate in my career. I've worked in the private sector, as Suzette has, doing big technology transformational change activities, and now I'm so fortunate to be here in the government working with you all. And one of the amazing things when I came to the government was I think we have brilliant people in technology who have the added commitment that you don't necessarily have in the private sector about doing good, right? And doing something that is lasting and that we can leave a legacy here for our citizens. I'm really fortunate to work with a team called TTS, 18F, the PIFs, I don't know if, and the Centers of Excellence. So that's the new team that I'm working with in GSA. And all of those people, men and women, are dedicated to using technology for change, but for good, right? So it's not like in the private sector where I'm very proud of the work I did in the private sector, but did it help children receive food stamps quicker and make sure that more people got food stamps? Did it help our Department of Justice in terms of doing cyber work quicker than they needed to than in the past? The work that our teams are doing is noble, transformational work. It's not about shareholder value. So part of my plea here is, anyone that knows people in the private sector in technology, we are hiring, we want to bring women and men to work in the government, even for a year. We have great new hiring authorities where we can bring people in from the private industry just for a year to do meaningful work, right? As Margaret said, and I think women are primed to make even bigger effect in the government, because the issues that we have in the government are not technology issues. They require collaboration and persistence to be able to make the technical changes we need.
Thank you, Joanne. And I want to hear from Renee next. What inspired you when you were younger to get into IT, the IT field, and maybe if you could then elaborate on what the coolest thing you do now is?
Why don't I take the second question first? And that is about, actually, I'll take that. There we, yep. All right, I'm going to reverse the questions because you might not listen to me on the other second question if I told you the truth, all right? So what's the coolest part of my job? And let me open with a few experiences that I've had. One, I just recently got back from Russia and Kazakhstan, where I had the privilege of watching NASA, in partnership with Russia, launch 3 astronauts to the International Space Station. And in fact, what you'll see, yes. And there was a cosmonaut and 2 astronauts, cosmonaut being the Russian term, and all 3 of them boarded the Soyuz capsule and arrived very safely 2 days later, where I got back to Moscow from Kazakhstan and witnessed them first coming through the door. My first comment was, is there a doorbell on the other side? It takes about 2 hours in the docking process in order to make sure everything is safe. The really good thing is that space is about technology, and it's about human curiosity, and it's about a can-do attitude, and it's perseverance. And it's also struggling with loneliness as well, because can you imagine being that first person that looked up and said, I think we can go there? First of all, probably half the people thought the world was still flat, and then the other half thought they were crazy. And so in that loneliness is courage, because they probably were scared of failure, but that failure drove them forward. I have had the experience of holding a moon rock. I have met many an astronaut I will tell you, it's a very humbling experience. I can barely remember dinner last night, and they're spouting out the physics associated with a launch circling the space station or the planet, or they'll talk to you about how far away our latest satellite has gotten. And I'm just like, well, I think I had dinner last night. So very humbling to go through that. I've met the librarian of the Vatican, because the Vatican is digitizing the holdings so that knowledge can be freed to more. And talk about a historical holdings. I have seen the letter that Abe Lincoln wrote to the Pope, asking for blessings and courage and prayers associated with the ripping apart of American culture during the Civil War. But the best part of my job, besides working in the federal government, is bringing together a team to make great things happen, to allow us to leave the planet safely. The first A in NASA is aeronautics, and that's with airplanes. And you can thank NASA for safety and sustainability for where you fly, which is a really cool thing. But the other part is space, and that's our S. That stuff comes true by bringing people together about having dialogue and discourse and arguments and thinking about safety, whether it's the human side or the safety now associated with cybersecurity. And so my job is to bring together the team to support our great mission and help them see that they can be greater than they ever even imagined for themselves. So that really is the best part of my job. Now, how did I even come here? So let's be honest. I have an economics degree and a Bachelor of Arts. No science, no nothing. So maybe what I have is I'm really naive because I think I can, and I don't mind skinning my knees, and if you look at them, they're pretty scarred. And I don't mind being stupid, and I certainly know how to persevere. But all of this was born on I-64, and I remember this because I get this question asked, and I don't remember dinner, but this I absolutely remember. So this was years ago, and I had just finished visiting a site with a dear friend near the Langley NASA place. Who would have known that I'd been there 20 years later? We're driving down I-64, and this is the beginning of PDAs, the personal digital assistants. And I was like, wouldn't it have been great when we were in the field and we could be looking at the groundwater schematics and pull up the samples right when we were there? And he, who works in the field, he's like, well, yeah, that would make my life easier because they take weeks to get ready to go visit the field because you got to make sure you have all the data. So you check and double check. And in that moment, in that car is when I thought, wow, IT and moving information, which is really what IT is about, is moving data, information around the globe, or off it in the case of NASA, and NOAA and the Air Force, is at that moment I knew that we could make the lives of federal government workers better, which meant that we could serve the public better with our missions. And that's when I started to make moves into information management and IT. So you never would hire me to run a server. I could tell you if the light were on, and I could read it to say who made it, and I need to do that more lately. But what I would do is really try to, what I really need to do is focus on bringing people together and making them better together as a team.
Thanks, Renee. And so we've heard about the different backgrounds and in getting to an IT and cybersecurity career. It was mentioned earlier that these types of careers don't always mean technical skills. Sometimes they mean communication and team skills. So I want to ask the question, what does a technology cybersecurity career look like? And if I wanted to get into it, where would I need to start? Is it, do I need a degree, whether it be in economics or in computer science? Do I need a degree? Do I need, what other credentials do I need, certifications? So maybe Jason, maybe you can help us off by kicking that off.
Certainly. So that's a really good question, and I remember thinking long ago, where do you begin? And I think it really depends where you're at. I would look for opportunities to be involved in technology. It's all around. As we know, everything we do is connected these days. So I would look for opportunities. If you are a federal employee, sometimes I will talk with staff and they will say, oh, I'm not in the IT field, but there are opportunities where they can provide like a collateral duty around IT that gets them the experience and exposure. Because the question typically comes of, do I need a degree? And then do you need the experience? And the bottom line is you need the experience. I'm not saying you don't need a degree, but I will say that I know multiple people who don't have degrees, but they're excellent technologists. So the exposure is what really is key. The other piece I would recommend is finding people in the field that can help you and build your network, because what will happen is opportunities will come as a result of that. They can provide you lessons learned, they can provide you guidance on different paths and opportunities, and it will give you more exposure.
And maybe, Davina, I know you had a few resources or information that you can share about where is that? Where can you start, and how can you get into a cybersecurity or IT career if you're interested at a young age?
So I think one thing that you need to share or need to explore is where your particular passion is. And then a shameless plug coming out of the NICE office, the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, I would recommend looking at the NICE Workforce Framework and being able to explore those 7 broad categories and see where are you starting from, and is it something that you could add to with certifications or online training or going back to school, or looking at particular degrees, and when you're investigating or digging down into that framework and trying to find some of the knowledge, skills, and abilities, what does that align with? And then exploring also another opportunity is to use the cyberseek.org, and so that's a tool, a free open source tool that allows you to see where the what jobs are available throughout the U.S., and that would give you insight into the connecting the NICE framework as well as where those jobs are. Another option is to look at the Department of Labor and to see what jobs are growing. You definitely don't want to go down the path and then find out that in another 2 or 4 years there's not going to be that many jobs in that particular area. So the Department of Labor has some wonderful resources. There's the cybercareer.gov, which is another option that you could look at to get started, to see what jobs are available and what credentials they're looking for. So there's lots of federal resources that are available, and I think one of the things is that folks don't realize that they're there, and we need to be able to share with all age groups, not just young, but those that are returning, those that are upskilling or reskilling or transitioning over, to make them aware of those plethora of resources.
Thanks, Davina. Did Joanne or Renee, do you have anything to add?
I'd just like to make one point. One thing that I always encourage women that I mentor, and I have daughters, by the way. We're really into girl power in my family, but I just had a grandson, so we're going to accept the men around here. But one thing that I always encourage women that I mentor is you have to be always curious. You always have to be intellectually curious and assume that your current job is not going to be here in 2 years. So it's this constant hunger for information about what you're interested in, right? What you're passionate about, but also you have an experience in a certain industry, where is it going? And maybe where is there going to be a crossover in terms of technology in your industry? So that idea about it's not good enough to say, well, I work 12 hours a day and I'm exhausted. It's, hey, you know, you do need to constantly focus on your career and look at it. The investment in you is critically important, and it doesn't stop with the 12 hours that you may be focused on your current job. You always need to be looking ahead. You owe that to yourself. And one of the things I don't think that a lot of people think like that. They think if I just do my job really well, I'm going to rise up in the organization, or I'm going to get to do great work. That isn't always the case. I think you always have to be aggressive about looking at what's next. And by the way, how can I bring things from other industries or other fields in to help my current job? That will help you move ahead.
So I want to bring it back to that, being able to get to that point of looking ahead. Where do we start? How young do we start? How do we tell young women at a young age that you can be an IT specialist, or you can be a cybersecurity forensic analyst? How do we describe to them what that is, what that looks like, and how they can start getting into that? Is it through extracurricular activities or other mechanisms? And I don't know if Joanne, you had anything to follow up on that, or I know Davina, you have a long history in the K-12 space, so maybe you can chime in there.
So this particular question we often get asked, and that is, how do you get more girls into the field? And the next question that usually comes across our desk is, what should we be teaching them at particular age group, you know, at the grade bands? And so what's interesting is NICE has a couple of, they have several working groups, and within those working groups there are subgroups. Two of them that I work closely with is the collegiate and the K-12 subgroup. So one of the things that they have been working on is a cross-mapping between the NICE framework and the different K-12 standards. So the new science standards, next generation science standards, cross-mapping with the workforce framework, and then the mathematics standards and computer science standards and so forth. And from that, being able to tease out then what exactly should we be teaching at particular levels. So that's going to be a great resource. But some of the things that have bubbled up from that have been, one, being able to share with particularly the girls, is that it's not just hardcore technology, that you can be passionate about other domains, whether it be the business aspect or the communications or the forensics or law, whatever the case might be, and then you overlay it with the cybersecurity. So that is a way of getting your foot in the door, and they seem to be more passionate about it. And then to be open, as you mentioned earlier, to be open-minded and willing to learn additional skills along the way. So that was one thing that bubbled up. The other is, of course, the ethics, teaching the ethical aspect of the piece. In terms of some other things about the informal, so the camps, the summer camps, the after-school programs, competitions, and we find that a lot of the young ladies prefer, instead of the cyber defense competitions, they like the linguistics and the cryptology competitions and the forensics, and there's even a 912 policy, cybersecurity policy, that they enjoy. But the one-time intervention, what the data is showing is there's not a great connection between a one-time intervention and getting the girls to go into that particular field or that degree. So I think we also need to think about multiple opportunities, whether that be, in the classroom as well as after-school activities, informal competitions, but more than just a one-time intervention. So those are some of the things that have come across.
Thanks, Davina and Renee.
Oh, thank you for that, because I'd add a couple of other things to it, and that is a support structure. And this is true men and women. You have to have people around you that believe you can, so the days you don't think you can, when you're faking it, right? You're like, I'm a fraud standing here. You've got to have someone that just kind of pushes you on the backside, they lean back and pushes you forward so that you will stay in the game. You must be propelled by hope. You will be afraid, so be hope and courage, and a support structure will keep you at and in the game when you're going through the learning process. I left mathematics, and I'll tell you why. I was recruited for engineering school. I can specifically tell you why. My father, who worked at Goddard, looked exactly like a 1955 engineer. Okay, dark hair, the black glasses across, wire rim down here, pocket protector, right? I have none of that on today. I'm like, there's no fashion in that, and wear the cool shoes. So the other side is, bring who you are, fit in to be part of a team, but do not fit in to be disingenuous to your own hopes and dreams for yourself. So stay in mathematics. Get into art and design. Robotics now are interacting with humans. We now have to deal with safety, and we have to deal with lives. We know this from the recent Uber incident. I know this at NASA because we have lives at the end of our IT. So be propelled, stay in the game, and find the support structure. It doesn't have to be the hardcore IT where well, now it's not so much on the floors. Like, you can always tell an old to IT floor because it echoes. They don't do that anymore. A data scientist. Anthropologists are needed in cybersecurity because there's humans at both ends of IT. There are the threats, and there are the ignoseconds, that second that you think you really are going to win that iPad and you click on that link. You are not going to win the iPad. Do not click on the link. Thank you, all you CIOs and CISOs. I have just given you a PSA for the day. But remember, be driven by purpose, by your passion, and find some friends and stay in the game.
Thanks, Renee, and I really like the emphasis you put on that support system. So being federal IT and cybersecurity leaders yourselves, what do you think the federal IT cybersecurity community can be doing to help encourage young women to get into these fields? And maybe Jason, we'll start with you.
Certainly. I will say events like this, we should keep doing. I think career shadowing we can do from a government standpoint as well, more outreach, internships, scholarships. There's a lot of opportunities we can do to assist. I also think that, as we talked about mentoring as well, so there's a lot that we should be doing. I will say that on March 8th, we had was International Women's Day, and I held an event for all of the women in my team, and I was a few minutes late because of running from meeting to meeting, and when I walked into the room, there was so much energy in there. I was surprised because I walk into meetings every day that is not all women, and it's a rather stale meeting. So when I walked in there, I was like, wow, there's so much energy and livelihood in this meeting, and they were having great conversations. And as a result of that meeting, my deputy, who is a woman, has stood up quarterly meetings that she will be leading and through, so that we can gather the thoughts and the ideas and the collaboration and the synergy that was created. I think we should be doing more of those things, because in the couple of years I've been in education, we had not done that, and the result was amazing, and I'm looking forward to the quarterly updates on what's going on.
Please.
I just want to add one point. In my last role in the private sector, I had responsibility for software development around the world for a large IT firm, a large technology firm. And we had very poor representation of women, and this is around the world. So you talk about Latin America, parts of Asia, the US, we had overall dismal performance, and I had this role for about 4 years. And one of the things I started was saying to the hiring managers, we didn't have a quota, but saying to the hiring managers, you know, these positive discussions about diversity and their personal business results will get better. So we had kind of a gamification of it regarding how many women you could get in your team. And these were mostly men, hiring managers, right? Because we had pretty dismal, Suzette talked about this before, we had pretty dismal IT representation of women, we still do, in the private sector. And they then were going on recruiting events, bringing the right women talent with them, but also looking at non-traditional places for technology talent, looking for people that had plain math skills or had design background. So that idea about we can train you, right? We're a large technology firm, we'll train you. You're bright, you're committed. And some of our most successful women, by the time I left that role in 4 years, came in through this alternative path, right? So I think we have an obligation as leaders also in the government and technology to have that same energy that we put into our hiring managers about increasing diversity, right? Without quotas, but rather discussions about how valuable it is for our workforce. So I think we need to focus on this as well at an organizational and an enterprise level to encourage that diversity.
I'll just add that I think across all sectors, government as well as other, we're trying to get women into the field, but particularly with the government, the federal jobs, the awareness of that for our youth as well as for our collegiate students is very minimal, and I think that's something that we could really do a better job in, especially with women. If you do look at the research and some of the focus groups, what draws women in is the social good, the social helping and being not only just successful in a particular area, but doing good in the process. So that's exactly what our government jobs are trying to do. So I think we have missed an opportunity. We need to do a better job in being able to share those opportunities at career fairs, not only at the K-12 level, but also at the collegiate level. If you look at some of the colleges, whether it be at the business schools or the engineering or computer science, it's mostly all industry focused. And so in the minds of our students coming up, that is the one direction that they're being pushed towards. So I think we can highlight some of the opportunities that are available in all the different areas in government service.
Great. All right, so to kind of wrap it up and close it out, I want to see from the panelists what would be one piece of advice you would give, maybe as a mentor, to a young woman who is considering a career path in the IT or cybersecurity field. What would be your one or two pieces of advice to help her through this process? Renee, you're holding the mic. Okay.
I'm fine. I'll start. We'll go in a row. You mentioned a mentor. I would definitely recommend finding individuals in technology to serve and guide, because they will teach you lessons. They will give you just opportunities that you don't even realize. Another another thing that has been shared with me, one of my staff members had said that you should grow where you're planted. And I think that is so true. I'm not saying that people should stay where they're planted, but I think that there's a lot of opportunity, and it's identifying that opportunity, taking advantage of that opportunity, and then if there are not those opportunities, that's where, you know, the mentorship and guidance and getting involved in the community will provide those for you. That would definitely be my recommendation.
And one of the things that I worry about, and again, we've found this trend in the private industry, is even when we get women to join in technology, they may not advance at the same level as the men. So that's also an issue. So regarding that latter point, a lot of women feel that they shouldn't take a managerial or a supervisory role because they have children or they are thinking about having children. And my encouragement is, hey, you know, many of us have done it, right? Have raised families, you know, and technology, I think, is much easier to be able to do some level of work from home, you know, remote work, et cetera. So that point of, I think technology for women advancing in this area is kinder than a lot of other fields, right? And I just always encourage women, and I encourage you to think about that, right? This is a better place for women than being a banker, for example, where you have to be out with your clients all the time. So I think, and it's one thing that I think we also need to help push our women to. You can do everything. Yes, you can have a great job and you can have a family in technology.
Thanks. I would say that find purpose in your passion and stick with it and persevere. Be open. I think one of the points, Joanne, you made is really be open to learning. You've got to also listen, right? Don't get so worried that you start getting that shield around yourself that you don't hear the feedback, the gift of feedback to folks on how to help you be better, which is what mentors are to do. And then finally, just always believe in yourself. You're gonna make mistakes. We all do. There isn't a day that we aren't human, and that you've gotta figure out how you pick yourself up. Is it a little thing? Is it a big thing? But how do you work through the shame and the anger associated with mistakes? The better you get at that, the more learning you will do, and the more you will then be able to believe in yourself.
And I would say find your particular passion, see how it can connect with technology or cybersecurity. Continue then to grow and be willing to learn new skills, and find a mentor or several mentors. And the last is to network. The group is small enough that if you network, you're going to end up seeing the same folks probably. So network, network, network.
Thank you. So I think we're going to open it up for questions. There's probably mics in the middle rows. If you could go to those to ask your questions, please. And maybe while folks are making their way to the microphones, I did have a question. Are there concrete examples that you could give to find these mentorships or these networking opportunities? Where could young women go to get those?
Here in the Washington area in particular, so sorry YouTube land, I can't speak to any other city than the one I live in, and that is there are a number of government and private sector partnerships around, and they hold events, and they have, for the younger audience, they have sort of Young FCA, ACT has Nexus, every organization has a younger and an older, I'll say it that way, more experience maybe, because then you'll find people that you can connect with in terms of that. A number of our media that follow IT, FCW, FedScoop, all of those guys also hold events. Go and make a commitment to meet 3 people, and I don't mean meet and get your business card and say, check. I mean meet them. Be able to walk away with a positive impression of them by knowing something about them they're willing to share. Don't go stalking them. So make that a goal when you go to an event. That way it forces you to get outside of yourself, and you really will then, to Davina's point, really build your network. So gamify it, put your fear aside, and go have fun by going to some of these events. I mean, the Washington area is filled with these events. There's lunch, there's breakfast, there's dinner. So if you're living on a budget, you can pretty much feed yourself in a day. So my son was in New York City, trust me, he knew where all the free stuff was in New York City. I was like, that's pretty cool, right? So that's the other compelling part, is you get fed.
Thank you. So we do have a few questions in the audience, and I think we'll start here on the right side, my right side.
Hi, my name is Li Yang. Thanks for your presentation and your leadership. But I think in this world, women, actually not just women, a lot of people who are discriminated against or victimized, like whistleblowers who are really smart and intelligent and who know IT, but they are victimized. I just wonder, if you, in this world, especially in government position, you should have the power or some coordination to fix the system. So currently, like you have IT, but really going on this service. In other words, the hacking or obstruction of other people's work or destroy their files, a lot of things like that. And a lot of time, nowadays, they try to use the PPP, like public-private partnership. That is basically the extreme fraudulent criminal network operation. They destroy our democracy, our election process, our family, our communities. I just think we need some leaders who can really stand out against those people who are destroying our society. So I just wonder if you can really find somebody who can work together, whether man or woman. We need some leadership to build a stronger and more productive world.
So thank you for putting on the table, with humanity there is always a dark side, and that is as we make decisions through our biases, and we don't always know what our biases are. And there is discrimination, and there is harassment, and there's abuse, and it happens every day. It is incumbent upon any person that wants to call themselves a leader to speak out and use the resources available to them, or create those resources to create the opportunities and make the pathways available to folks. It is an ongoing effort. And a bystander who says nothing is just as guilty.
And I think a key thing, if you look at the movements that we're seeing now, Me Too is a great example, they didn't come from leadership. So that was the groundswell of people like yourself, like myself, right? It's people that are not necessarily in positions of power, but resonated with the community, and we're seeing that around the world, right, in other movements, right? The gun movement, I mean, you know, again, I'm not want to get partisan here, but, you know, there's lots of areas that are, you know, there's change afoot, and it doesn't just come from leadership. So you're powerful in your own, right? We each are, and you don't have to be a leader, in quotes, to be able to start that change.
All right, thanks. So I think we have another question here.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for hosting this event. This is a wonderful opportunity for women and some men to get together. My name is Allie, and I am actually not yet in the cyber or IT field per se. I have a marketing background. I'm currently taking a Security Plus course with actually my organization called Cyber Vista. We're a private company. And, you know, we are doing so much on our side of things that very much sound the same towards, Davina, what you were saying earlier about getting involved with challenges, and we, actually at the Cyber 912 event, we're supporting that group and their efforts. And there's just, we have free meetups for people to, especially young people, to understand the career paths in cyber that are available to them. And so I just feel like we're doing so much, and we're on the same page. And my question to you all is what can we do, not only my organization, but private companies over here, what can we do and how can we work with all of these wonderful folks in government and all the awesome programs that you guys have talked about to really help out in a holistic way for these, especially the young women out there. How can we do that together?
Sorry about that. So it sounds like you're doing wonderful things, and there are great opportunities out there. There are hackathons and competitions. There's competitions that are growing like mushrooms. There's early college programs, CTE programs. So one of the things that I would invite you to do is NICE does have the working group. We would love to have you on board. You can, that way we meet once a month, and the subgroups also meet, and you're able to see what others throughout the US and internationally are doing and how you can collaborate. And then we are able to collaborate between government and private industry, which I think is a fabulous opportunity. The other key component that I think that is going to come from industry is the opportunity for young and collegiate. So when I'm saying young, I'm thinking more about the K-12, but the apprenticeship opportunities, the job shadowing opportunities, the internship opportunities, and in a lot of cases, paid internships. If we, a lot of times we're able to do internships, particularly in the government sector, which is different than what you can do in industry, but the diversity then is somewhat limited because of the human capital that a lot of students do not have to be able to take, for example, a summer internship without pay. So those are things just to share and to be able, from the industry side, share with our government perspective, agencies, what exactly you're looking for so that we're all working together on one path.
The only thing I would add is that I know it was mentioned earlier, there are a lot of organizations in the DC metro area that have public-private partnerships. And I would definitely recommend that because from the time that I've been here, I've seen a lot of really great collaboration between industry and government that has produced some pretty amazing things for this nation.
The one thing I would also add is start something yourself. So maybe you're a new parent or just moved to the area. Well, if you're at a work environment, start a lunch group or a walking group and talk about these things, do projects together, work within your organization as well. So if you feel that you're time constrained, start your own thing that works within the time constraints that you believe that you've got. So all of this is building upon choices for you and everyone else, male or female. These are choices you can make with your time, and it's an investment in yourself. So part of groups, internships, and that, part of the many groups in Washington, D.C., or start your own thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. And there's one more question.
Hello, Sharon Payne from TrustWave. Thank you so much, panelists, for coming and talking to us about women in cyber and IT. And I've been in the IT arena for quite a while, and I'm really thrilled to see that there's a lot more women in it
whenever I go into a meeting, I used to be the only female, and now there's multiple females, so I really appreciate all the leadership that you guys have presented. So I know we've talked about networking, I know we've talked about how to get a mentor, but I've got a 22-year-old niece that's living with me, and I'd like to guide her toward an education in cybersecurity. So I'd like to ask the panelists, where do you start? I mean, how do you guide a young person these days into getting that knowledge that she needs to be a cybersecurity specialist?
Coding camps are phenomenal. I don't know if anybody ever go to a coding camp, like after college or even during college? There are some phenomenal ones out there, and I know many of the top private industry firms are hiring directly from these coding camps. So you can actually do a 3 or a 6 month coding, I shouldn't call it a camp, right? I'm minimalizing it. It's a coding school, but it's intense, 12-hour days, sometimes 6 days a week, where they teach you Ruby or Python, and you leave there in 3 months or in 6 months, and you can get a job as a developer or work on a design team. So there are things, even if you got a degree in, I don't know, economics or interior design, quite frankly, that you can completely change paths. So I am a big believer. I've seen graduates of these, and it requires, I mentioned it before, you need to be smart, you need to be hardworking, but you can kind of throw your past away, and if you're interested in technology, there's a route there, and sometimes in 3 to 6 months. And I don't own a coding firm or anything, but there's a lot of great ones. Every major city has them. I'm sure they're here in DC as well. So that would be my advice if she doesn't have any technology background.
Great question, and thank you, Joanne. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for this morning. We are going to do a quick intermission to get the next panel up here within the next 5 minutes. And thank you to our panelists. So please help me give a round of applause to our fantastic speakers.
You should go. No, please don't. I'm fine. I'm one of the crowd.
I think if you pull them closer, I think it's that they were too far away.
So you can use.
Yeah, I think it's just that they're too far back on the table. Yep. Okay. Okay. They're just low. Okay. Well, he said this one works, so. Yeah, he said that, yeah.
Testing 1, 2. That's exactly what women said. They were like, what's wrong with us? I'm like, working back to go like, but I just wanted to
Hey, how are you doing, honey?
Are you going tonight to the?
I am going tonight. Are you going too?
I am going to try. I have a late meeting, meeting in Virginia, but I was going to try to get down because I haven't been to one.
Hi, folks. We're going to get started here in 2 minutes. Again, if you could please take your seats again. We're going to get started in exactly 2 minutes.
Yeah, I talked.
2 minute
we
warning.
Have a conference call today.
Oh, is it already? Excuse me. Yeah, that's great. Anyway, well, I'll see you tonight. If I get stuff to shoot out of here at the end. So.
All right, I know half the fun of events like this is talking and the opportunity to network like we heard from the last panel. So I hope that what you heard from the last panel, you take away a couple of things. There's lots of paths in, there's lots of ways to make it work, and there's some amazing, cool things that they're doing. We could probably go back and forth all day with every one of our panelists around what was the coolest part of your job and spend our time here. But I'd like to introduce our next moderator, Janet Stevens, and this fantastic panel. These are the women that I have the pleasure of working with almost every day. But Janet is one of USDA's longest serving Chief Information Officer. She's part of the Food and Safety Inspection Services. She has been in the profession 27 years. She's received too many awards for me to actually read this, but we're thrilled that she's here and that she's going to be moderating this panel of fantastic CIO women. Thanks, Janet.
I too am vertically challenged, so adjustments accordingly. I'm also here to give any English majors a lot of confidence and inspiration that you too can get a career in IT and cybersecurity. So thanks a lot to Renee for reminding us of that. And also that, yes, we all skin our knees quite a bit, but we pick ourselves up and we persevere, and it's a great visual, I think, for all of us to start with. Your career path is your own. I just encourage you to own that. So our next panel is Moving Forward and Up Together. We feature successful female leaders from across the federal enterprise to share their professional stories and the path they took to achieve executive leadership roles. Together, they'll share advice for moving up and forward in your own careers. Before we begin today's panel, I'd like to introduce our extraordinary panelists. First off on my list, I have Margie Graves, second from the left. She currently serves as the Federal Deputy CIO within the Executive Office of the President. And prior to Suzette's arrival, she dutifully stepped up as acting Federal CIO to help lay the groundwork for IT modernization initiatives across the federal government. Margie has over 20 years of experience in the management consulting industry, where she has held numerous executive positions and worked to build inclusive and high-performing teams. So welcome, Margie. Next, we have Beth Kaloran, who serves as the CIO for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And Beth has an enormous job of overseeing IT and cybersecurity operations of the second largest and most complex federal agency. To put this in context, folks, she's responsible for protecting the data of at least 1 in 3 Americans. So we value you. Beth has over 20 years of federal service, and we're honored to have her serve as the executive co-chair for the CIO Council's Workforce Committee. Next, we have Sylvia Burns at the end. She serves as the U.S. Department of Interior's CIO. She's responsible for the management and oversight of the Interior's multi-million-dollar information management and technology portfolio. Her dynamic leadership style has transformed the way the IT community supports DOI's critical missions. She joined the federal government as a presidential management intern, hint, hint, for those looking at opportunities and ways in. And she's risen to become one of the nation's top women in tech. And last but not least, we have Maria Rote. She's a retired Navy veteran who serves as the Small Business Administration's Chief Information Officer. She's recognized by many as an influential trailblazer for change. She brings 30 years of professional IT leadership experience to the federal government in order to reshape, innovate, and modernize the technology used by SBA programs. Please join me in welcoming this outstanding panel of executives. So let's get this panel started. So the first question is, if you could share how you got into the technology sector, what inspired you, and what experiences led you to become a CIO in the federal government? And I'd like to start with Margie.
The technology works this time, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Second panel's a charm.
Okay. Actually, when you look at the word STEM, or the acronym STEM, I actually started in two other areas, science and engineering. So I was a nuclear chemist and then became a chemical engineer, and then constantly used technology, particularly data analytics, to increase the impact or to speed up the result that I was trying to achieve in the science world or in the engineering world. And working in the nuclear field, you know, you pretty much have to get it right the first time. So those things were very impactful for me. And as I moved through my career, I found that I leaned more and more toward the technology side because I saw the impact it could have. Ultimately, the kinds of things we're talking about today where you know, we can match cancer patients with clinical trials using artificial intelligence, where we can provide situational awareness to law enforcement officers while an incident is unfolding for public safety and protection, and how we can meet people on the worst day of their lives like we did at FEMA and DHS with tools and capabilities to actually recover from natural disasters, and all of that being technology-based. And some of that started very early in my existence because I was the person experimenting in the backyard with rockets and with mixing things together and watching them bubble, and all of the curiosity that people have been talking about earlier today. I always wanted to know why things worked. Why I moved into the federal government, I was working in private sector in mergers and acquisitions, and I often used technology as the enabler to put together two companies and find the synergies and move those companies forward as one entity. I did a lot of post-merger integration in that arena. But ultimately, what brought me into the federal government was 9/11. Like many people, you know where you were when 9/11 happened, and you understand the impact that it had on the country. Ultimately, what I wanted to do was I wanted to apply my skill set and my capabilities to that issue. And when I was trying to determine how to do that, I was thinking it would be in my local community or in some way, shape, or form, just banding together with people to help. But I got a phone call from a friend who was putting together the beginnings of Transportation Security Administration, which later became the Department of Homeland Security. And he said, how would you like to be a part of the biggest merger/acquisition in the history of the federal government? And that sounded like an interesting proposition. And it also let me, I didn't really know how I was going to apply my specific skills, and then it just completely opened up. It made so much sense. And there are points at time, and I want to encourage everyone in the audience as we move through this conversation today, there are points in time when you're not quite sure where your next purpose is, but then the door opens and you've got to have the strength and the confidence to walk through it, even if it's something that is not quite what you've done before.
Thank you. I'd like to move next to Sylvia for the same question of what inspired you, but also you had a unique path into federal government that I think our audience may be able to learn more from.
So, in my case, I will tell you, I'll admit to you all that, and my staff know this, I'm a sci-fi junkie. So, when I was in junior high school and in high school, I used to hang out with the geeky crowd. I was like probably one of two girls who hung out with a bunch, you know, the guys who are really geeky. So that was the crowd that I was hanging out with, and we watched Star Trek. You know, some of the guys who I hung out with, they just they knew every single episode by the title, by all the technological detail. Probably knew how to speak Klingon, all that stuff, right? And I loved it. I loved Isaac Asimov as well, just because it was this thing about the way the future could be. And technology was such a part of it, about just bringing civilization to a place where we had never been, right? Kind of moving the boundary, always. So I think from an early age, it just fascinated me. And I always loved science, and so I remember being part of the science club in junior high school, and basically during lunchtime, sitting in this lab, and I was doing like more like trying to grow bacteria in a petri dish, but the guys sitting down the table were wiring a computer. It's a computer. It was a box that had a bunch of red and black wires, and they were just plugging things from one little socket to another. So I was always interested in it. So I'd say that was something very foundational kind of in my whole life. And then another big thing that happened to me was like when I became a mother for the first time. The whole thing about having a child is just such an amazing experience. I think that for me, I went from being kind of like very self-focused to all of a sudden realizing that I cared very much about the way the world was because of the child that I had to take care of and the world that she had to live in. So I felt all of a sudden this incredible responsibility to make the world a good place so that she would have a good place to live in and her generation. So I think just as kind of foundational things for me as a person, early things in my life that grounded me. Then I think it was just a matter of a series of opportunities. I remember I used to mentor a young woman who worked with me, and I remember she was brilliant. She had a 5-year plan for her, like she had 5-year plans for what was going to happen in the next 5 years. And I was like, wow, she has a 5-year plan. I never had a 5-year plan. What happened with me was things would happen. It's sort of like the Forrest Gump movie, right? Life's a box of chocolates, and you don't know what you're going to get. You don't. You don't know where life is going to lead you. I would have never expected to be a CIO in the federal government. I would tell you that I never had an aspiration to be a CIO in the federal government. It was all about opportunity. It was all about what was happening at the time, and me being very, I guess, passionate about my why. We've talked a lot in my own organization about what's your why. And my why is, really about that greater, how do we make this world a better place? How do we make this country strong so that the people who live in it can thrive? That's my fundamental why. Technology was a way to get there. So when I saw different problems that I had, I ended up going to technology because it was just like, no duh, right? The internet. Yeah, we could do this better if we did it through the internet. So I think it was opportunities like that. And when I was asked, which actually my 4-year anniversary from being asked to be acting CIO at Interior is on Saturday.
Oh, happy anniversary.
4 years. And I remember, my God, I never wanted to be the CIO of a cabinet level agency. I know the pressure that goes with that, right? Because I used to work for CIOs. And I was like, who would want to do that job? It's like terrible, You're in the crosshairs all the time. But I saw also this tremendous need because the organization that I work for now at the time was just going through tremendous suffering for a variety of reasons, and I was able to see and it wasn't through technology. It was really because of the human sensitivity to what was going on, the dynamics of people and all, that I could see how to get out of it, how to get out of the bad situation. Because the bad situation, yes, we have a challenging technological situation at Interior, but solving that is not about the technology. Solving that is about people, and how do you get people together, work for a common cause, and not look at each other as enemies of each other, which is where we were 4 years ago. So to me, becoming a federal CIO was more about the path of seeing opportunities, seeing need, seeing where I could help fulfill something and fill a need, and just it led me here. So,
did anyone on the panel going through school of any type think I want to be in federal government in some way growing up? Raise your hand. Yeah. Okay. See, it's not just you. Okay. So the next question I'd like to pose to the panel is, we heard earlier about some data about women in the workforce, especially in IT and cyber. So a recent study found that the number of female CIOs in private sector dropped to 16% in the last year. But in federal government, we far surpassed that figure with close to 40% of federal civilian agency CIO positions being held by women. So the first part of the question is, how have each of you moved up and forward in the federal government, and what are you doing to pave the way for other women to follow in your footsteps? And I'd like to start with Beth.
So I will start with, I followed a path like Sylvia. I did science and tech in high school. However, so AP biology, AP chemistry, first programming classes, and math. Every math class I could take, keep me away from English as far as I could get. I hated English, and I'm probably still the worst speller on the planet. Thank God we have spell check. But with that, as I went into college, I was like, that's just too easy. I want to do something different. So I said, well, gosh, why don't I do HR? That's very science-y. And so I actually became an industrial and personal psych major, and my dream was to work at OPM. I don't seem to have ever got there, but circumstances being what they were, when I got out of college, I had been working at the Navy during summers and interns doing a clerk typist, and they said, well, gosh, we don't have any Fed positions, but why don't you come and you can do ergonomics. You can tell us where the keyboard should be and the monitor should be placed. And after being there for 2 months, they said, well, gosh, we don't have any more stuff for ergonomics, so why don't you teach IT? Okay. And so very much like Sylvia, every part of my career has been there. I walk into one particular position with a specific expectation of what that job was going to be. And literally within the first 6 months, no later than the first year, it was completely different. And so when I came in, for example, to the federal government, similar to Margie, I actually worked for the customs service as a trainer, and actually as a contractor, and then went to be a land administrator in Houston, Texas. But with that, 9/11 happened while I was there. And actually I was at the Oklahoma City bombing happened first. But so you have to understand that when you're looking at different things, there's going to be different opportunities, and you have to excel in each of those opportunities, and then different things that you may not have thought were possible are going to happen. And I think for people in workforce that I'm trying to do is how do we put those opportunities in front of all of our employees? One of the favorite things I like to say in our organization is there's a right person for every job, but they may not be in that job right now. And so you have to look at individuals and understand where their passions are and understand where their skill sets lie now and where they aspire to be in the future, and how do you help them and mentor them into those organizations. And there are different kinds. One thing that industrial and personal psych did tell me is certain people are going to have affinities for people that are like them, and in some cases they will also have affinities for people that are opposite of them. We aren't always going to have perfect harmony in every situation, but the more we add diversity, the more robust the conversation, the better the solution. And so as I've moved through my career in 20 plus, almost 25 years now in the government, is how do you put those right people along those paths and challenge them? Because there were a number of times, including a couple that I had with Margie, which was, oh my God, I'm not quite sure I'm ready to do that. And they were like, no, just try it for 6 months, it's fine. And I never went back, ever, to the job that I actually had. And because of that, there were different opportunities and skills that I learned, and all of them led them to the path that I am at now. But if I hadn't accepted those challenges and said, this is too tough, or if this is just something I'm not ready for, and didn't also have those people to help back me up, they wouldn't have the opportunity to be where I am. And I think for each of you, you'll have to find those challenges, but also when you are challenged, don't be scared, because there are the capabilities and there are things within you that will allow you to succeed.
Thank you. Maria, you're also known as a trailblazer, so I was wondering if you could answer the question too about moving up and forward and also paving the way for others.
Moving up and forward, my career has zigzagged all over the place. There has never been a path. It's been all over the place. I worked on my first computer. This is kind of scary. This is in 1979 on a Burroughs mainframe. I was in high school. That's how I got my start. From there, I did not go to college. I joined the Navy. They were doing computer stuff. So, from there, it went from there, from active duty, actually working on computers. Colleges at the time in the early 80s were teaching Fortran, assembler. I had zero interest in that. But I figured out by working on that mainframe, there's this whole operational aspect to computers. And by joining the Navy, I got hands-on, and I got to work in that environment. I worked on mainframes. I worked on key punches. I'm dating myself here, but that's where I started. And I moved from there to working on PCs, to working on networks, getting into engineering, getting into architecture, and working on global enterprise networks. Who gets to do that? You get to do that in the federal government. That is what's been really cool. I have zigzagged all over the place in my career. I have held pretty much about every job, except for programmer, because I really suck at it. I am a bad coder. I will troubleshoot all day long, but don't ask me to sit still and write something, because I can't sit still long enough. And with the military, I got off active duty. I stayed in the reserves. I've had 2 careers. I retired 11 years ago with 26 years of service in the Navy. And that brought a lot of just the ability to do different things. So both in the reserves, it was not one weekend a month. I was working, doing things 6 weeks a year, plus my weekends, being able to go out on exercises. I was working in the intel community, going out on exercises, supporting the SEALs and the Rangers, and being an IT person working in that field and working in intel was awesome, and it was cool. And being curious, being out there, asking questions, and, well, why not? Why can't we do that? That looks kind of cool. I've just been able to move around and been able to do different things. I mean, I worked all over the place at DHS. Sometimes you're not looking for things, opportunity, like Sylvia talked about. You're not looking for somebody. Somebody says, hey, take a look at this job. And that's how I've ended up in many of my jobs, and I have zigzagged all over the place. For those of you that go to school, you're going to college. I did not go to college. I will admit I graduated 4 years ago with my bachelor's degree. So I have learned along the way, and when I say I've zigzagged, the school of hard knocks, let me tell you. But being able to zigzag and look for those opportunities. Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes it's somebody tapping you on the shoulder going, hey, and that's part of your networking. Somebody goes, hey, did you know about this job over here? You've been doing this, you've been doing that. You might want to look over here at this. And you go, how the hell am I going to do that job? Excuse me. That's how I got to be chief of staff at DHS, working for Margie and Richard Spires. Who gets to do that job? That was an awesome job. I was there for 3.5 years. As an IT person with a technical background, let me tell you, it worked. So for those of you out there, look for those oddball jobs, because what you've learned, your engineering, for me, the architecture, all that IT skill set, when those IG reports and people wrote stuff up for the IG, I got to question and say that didn't make sense, when things were going back. That doesn't make sense. Looking at statements of work, looking at those kind of things, so that entire operational background, I was able to bring that to the table. And zigzagging around, I keep saying that, I have been back and forth and done a lot of things. I will also share that I learned a long time ago working on, early on in computers and PCs and networking, I am a really good troubleshooter, and I build things. I learn figure out what is that little thing that you can do, and you can apply that anywhere. I always say, I went to an event and they were putting little stickers on you. What do you do? And I went, I'm in the construction business, because that's what I do. I build things. Come into somewhere new. You have to turn something around, build on something operational, do something else. So, when you ask about zigzagging and how do you pave the way for other women too, think outside that box. Don't think that just because I'm an engineer, I'm always going to be an engineer. Look for those opportunities to do something different. The question came up earlier about, what can a young woman who's not in this environment do that? It's not just coding. There's many other things you can do and apply your skills. Think about that thing that you do really well. I troubleshoot really well. I'm in the construction business. I know how to build things. I know how to pull things together, get to root causes, and then move on from there. Figure out what that thing is, and I think that's what helps you along the way, regardless of what your job is, whether it's in IT or I don't know, basket weaving. I don't know, whatever that job might be. And then even in the federal government, you have so many opportunities to do cool things that you might not be able to do in the private sector. And I did spend 5 years in the private sector and came back to the federal government because of those cool opportunities.
Can I just add one thing?
Absolutely.
You've heard from many of the panelists that the tapping on the shoulder, and I had an opportunity at one point. There was a woman who was working for me who was working actually in data science. Though she did not call herself a data scientist, she did not think of herself as a data scientist, but everything that she was doing, she was putting together what we call the management cube for DHS, which was pulling together all of the disparate information across the department to answer holistic questions that had to be answered from multiple data sources. So for example, if there's a hurricane, in southern Florida, how many assets do we have on the ground? Where's our logistics? Do we have capability to actually respond? That has to be answered from multiple areas, right? She was doing that. She was pulling together all that information. She was doing the technology behind it. And a data scientist position, particularly a chief data officer, came up in another agency, and she was not going to apply. And I sat her down and I said, you are doing this, but I'm not a data scientist. I don't have a degree. They're not going to consider me. I said, no, you go forward, you tell them what you've done and what you've accomplished, and then they can see in you what they're looking for in that chief data scientist. And she's there in HHS today.
Ooh, good story. I think one thing in listening to everyone here at the panel and some of the earlier panels is we're talking about all the things, the opportunities they have, the things we have to choose to do, and all these things. There's all this stuff around us we need to try to figure out how to do. But then I want to get a little bit about balance. Is when you've got this mission that's focused, you need to run this mission, you need to do these things for the American people, but also how do you turn back and how do you find times for your family, yourselves? Can you talk a little bit about balance? And I wanted to start off with, actually I was going to start with Sylvia on that one, so.
So what I'll take first the thing about, I think there was a question about how do you deal with your personal, especially like if you've got young children, right? That's hard. I remember, so there's different phases of your career also, right? Earlier in your career, and I was maybe more fortunate because I had young children earlier in my career, but it comes down to like you have to make choices, right? It's based on your values. And you make sacrifices for those values. So in my case, I had to be there to pick up my kids from daycare. So I couldn't stay till all hours at night like I can now, right? Because it wasn't the right time and place for that. And so I was really lucky for myself that my husband is just like, he's like, totally spoils me in terms of indulging my ambitions in my career and has been willing to make sacrifices for his own to sustain our values about caring about our children and our personal life and all that. So that was a blessing for me. And the other thing I feel grateful about him is that he raised 2 daughters who never were limited about thinking about what they could do in life, right? They have 0 limitations and they credit him with that. So, I just like appreciate that so much. But the whole thing about work-life balance, I think when you're in the situation where you have obligations, you may not be able to work 60, 80 hours. It's just not possible. You may have to work 40 hours. You may have to take sick leave, right? Because your kid's sick. You just have to live life, be real. I think later for me, and I'm not, my staff will tell you, I am not a good example of work-life balance. Bad example. But the thing where I think I found some peace with it, because then instead of nagging myself always by saying, why are you putting so many hours in? You're not doing enough exercise. You're not, getting on myself. It's more taking advantage of whatever time I have. That could be the 10 minutes that I have where I drive from my house to the metro to kind of just sit peacefully and not have the radio on, or of course you can't get on your cell phone, so you're there with yourself, right? And then I take the metro into work, so I have my quiet 35 minutes where I choose what I do, right? And I may choose to do email, or I may choose that I'm going to read some memos, but I can also choose that I'm going to do a meditation app, and I'm going to listen to that and calm myself down. Weekends I try to exercise, and just because I believe like it gives me that balance, especially stress. Like for me, the physical exertion helps me manage stress. But I had to learn that I shouldn't beat myself up because I'm not great at work-life balance, but just really find the spaces where I could do things for myself so that I could be grounded as a person, and therefore then be better when I come in and have to work with people.
Thank you. Beth, what about you? How do you find balance?
So again, there are parallels, but I have a person, and my son is going to turn 11 on Friday. So I still have a young child at home, and I will say having a young child, when I was considering being an SES, it really was one of the reasons I was going to say no. When I first started my career, I had no work-life balance. I was a single person. I worked all the hours. I came in, I left. I slept with a pager under my pillow, expecting that 2 a.m. call when something broke in IT operations. But after I got married and my husband for about the 10th time called and said, "Are you ever getting off that BlackBerry while we eat?" I decided I had to do something with work-life balance. And so I now actually shut down. I mean, I may check my iPhone a couple times, but I have a time that I leave every day. My staff knows when I leave. I may check my phone a couple times when I get home, but I do not. I actually have a off button. And when I go home, it is now time for my husband and my child. But we were still having some struggles similar to Sylvia, where my son was still suffering. So my husband, again, just like hers, decided he would take a step back in his career. And in December, he actually left his job of 30 years before he could actually retire to dedicate to my son and to our house. And so you have to figure out and have a good partner. And similar, where, hiking and biking, and my son is like 100% baseball, so, from now until probably November, I will be every day when I have free time at a baseball game. But you have to make sure that you're there and present for both of those lives. Because I can say, all the great things that I've accomplished in my career, but my best accomplishment is going to be whatever my son does. And I have to make sure that I'm there and present for him, because I don't want to have the regret at the end of the day that I wasn't there for him or my husband, and something suffered or I missed something because I was focusing on what the government needs. And so you have to figure out what that balance is going to be best for you.
Margie, Maria, any words of advice on balance?
I have 3 daughters in their 20s. I will never be accused of having a good work-life balance. However, I have 3 daughters that I like to think that are really independent. Growing up, there is a balance. I do want to echo what Sylvia said about, you do make time for the kids. You do have that time. You do take a pause in your career and in your job at times so that you can make those games. I probably wasn't really good at the immediate after-school stuff that started at 3:30 in the afternoon, but I tried as best I could to attend the games and the tournaments and all those kind of things. So I did as much as I could to really do that and make that balance. My time is I am an introvert by nature. I need time to process. I walk every day from my office to Union Station, and I take the MARC train every day. That's time for me to process. That's 22 minutes of generally uninterrupted time, unless somebody's walking with me, back and forth every day. In the afternoons, while I do take phone calls from the train, I do leave, like Beth, at about the same time every day and catch one of 2 trains, except for last night. We had CIO council that ran late. But on the way home, I will take conference calls. But for those of you that get the express paper, I do the crossword puzzle every day. So you have to find those things. And I play soccer every Friday night, and I make a point of doing that. It's co-ed soccer, and it's tough, and I take out the week on soccer every Friday night. I will tell you that. And my kids know, growing up, they knew I was playing soccer. I've been doing this about 10, 12 years now. So, but with the kids, there is a balance, and you do take a pause in your career. And while I've had 2 careers, both the military and with my federal service, there are times where you do take a pause. You're not as aggressive. You take your time. You do have that off button. And you do have to make time for that.
I'm the only person in my extended family that lives in this general vicinity, so I've also developed a network of very close friends that I would consider brothers and sisters. They're that close. And one of my great joys in life is on a weekend and any given Saturday that I can sync with those people and listen to things that have nothing to do with my job. They have absolutely nothing to do with technology, except maybe there's a cool app out there that somebody wants me to see. There is nothing in that conversation that is centered around Margie's persona in the professional world. It's Margie's persona in the, gee, I went to Robinson High School world, or gee, I live in Fairfax Station world. So-and-so from our high school is in town and we're all going to get together down at the local haunt. Those are the kinds of breaks that you need to take for yourself, because I find that when we do get out of balance, and I think everybody will attest to this, that you're no longer your best self and you're not making your best contribution anyway. So when I am not occasionally refreshed or even getting out in nature, I horseback ride because my family's from Texarkana and I grew up, in summers, my grandmother's ranch. That communing with nature, that turning off, that disconnect from the technology and the world that is very fast-paced that we live in, the constant on of consumption of information actually allows you to regroup. And Maria and I were just talking earlier before the session. She's about to take a vacation to Hawaii. She's been developing her strategic plan, but she's going to take this time. Something's going to be rotating in the back of her mind, but she's going to be relaxed. And something will come out of that, because her thought process is still ongoing, but she's in a different mode, and something good will come out of that. So some of your best ideas come when you've been ruminating on something, you've been trying to figure out how to go, and then you refresh yourself and it comes to you.
So I think I speak for a number of folks in talking about times you feel stuck in your careers. So I'd like to know more about what advice can you provide and what help to get folks who feel that they're stuck in their careers to get them unstuck and moving forward again. So Sylvia, if I could start with you. And I'd like to just work my way down on that one.
Sure. I actually don't, when you're stuck, sometimes you're just stuck in your mind, because in truth, you're not really ever stuck. It's just really about the choices that you're making. And sometimes there are hard choices, right, between one thing and another, where maybe there are two things that are really important to you, and you have to you have to decide which way you're going to go, because you can't have both. But I think that it's really about, I think it's finding people that you trust, who you can talk through and be the sounding board to listen through, and it's not so much that you're looking for somebody's advice. It's in some ways it's more the processing, so that you can talk it out, and then that could help you. I know for me it helps just to kind of realize where you are, and then I think that's a path to getting unstuck. To Margie's point, and actually what Maria was saying as well, I find when I have a huge problem, that's why I love exercising. I work out like a fiend when I work out, and I let go of everything in terms of it's a different part of your brain that's working, and there's the physical part as well. Somehow that different physiology that gets triggered when you do exercise, for me when I'm dealing with a problem, sometimes during that process, I'll tell you, I've solved the problem by the time I finished exercising. And I don't know what it is. It's like magic. I kind of I need to work out just because I've got to figure out this problem, and I'm gonna kill a kickboxing class or whatever, But when I'm done with it and I'm sweating and I'm just I'm spent, I actually that's the answer to my problem. So.
Maria?
As far as feeling stuck, we all have that time or some place in our careers where we go, you're stuck for many reasons. You're stuck because you're bored, you're stuck because of something. I had one position in particular where I was stuck because through no fault of my own. I will share that I could tell you what that bus looked like. It ran me over backwards. I could tell you where the oil leaks were on that bus. I needed to find something else. And it was, through no fault of my own. And being stuck means you tap into that network. The prior panel talked about your network and having that network. I very quietly put the word out that I was looking. And I don't get frustrated for long. I recognize it and I move on and I do something about it. So when you're stuck, you can't let it chew on you. You need to do something about it, recognize it for what it is. I'm stuck, I got to do something about it and move on. And in this case, I used my network and very quietly put the word out that I was looking for something. Sure enough, it took about 2 months or so and something came up. So when you're feeling stuck, don't get frustrated, don't get depressed, don't get down on yourself. Acknowledge it, own it for a nanosecond and move on and go do something about it.
Yeah, I would say, to Maria's point, positive action always, even if it doesn't come to fruition right away, every positive step that you take leads you to the ultimate break. So one of the things that people have said up here today, and you've heard it expressed in many ways, is careers are very seldom linear. You don't know what's going to come up. You can segue sideways. You can actually move into a different field where your skill set is applicable and it's an adjacent field. And it's not necessarily what you're doing today. So never limit yourself. Understand that you can do things that aren't necessarily your resume, your current job, or what you studied in school. And those breaks come from constantly using your network as a sounding board as to what's out there and where you might be able to apply your specific unique talents.
Thank you. Beth, how about you?
So I think that there's it's a multi-pronged approach. One is, first, you have to find out what stimulates those thoughts and ideas so that you can be in a positive place. Because if you're stuck in something, you first have to get into the positive place so you understand the realm of possibility. Then the next thing you have to do is understand and use that network, or use whatever mechanisms, whether you're a project manager and, hey, I build a plan. What are those so you understand what alternatives or options you have? Whether that is, I could go on a detail, I could find a new position, I could lateral someplace else, whatever those options might be. What are your options? And then figure out as you're looking at your options, which one of those excites you? Because it's more than likely when you have to go through that process, you'll understand where your next step is just by going through the process. And then figure out, how do I make that happen? I think we heard from a couple folks that, some people have a 5-year plan, some people don't. Whether it's a zig or a plan, you have to be open to the opportunity and understand it's whatever position you're in, whether you feel stuck or not, it's what you make of it. So even in the case if you feel stuck, what can you do to make that job that you feel stuck in the best it can be now? And what can you do to plan and make yourself the best position for whatever that next opportunity is going to be? And even if it's not that linear path that you thought it would be, it may be the best thing for you. And so be open for even the opportunity that might not have been in your alternatives analysis or in what you actually thought you were going to do, because that may be the, oh my gosh, this is what my passion is now, and it really leads you to the destiny you're supposed to be in.
So fair warning to folks in the audience and online, we'll be queuing up for questions shortly, so I have one last question to go through the panel, and we'll turn it over to you guys to ask your questions. So the last question I would have is, in your daily lives, what is the one thing that your go-to? Is it a book? Is it a quote? Is it a visualization? What is it that just gets you through the day that sometimes you just have to conjure up, or you have to just put your hands on it or look at? And I actually wanted to start with Beth, and I'll roll my way down to Sylvia.
So I am a troubleshooter by trade as well, but I'm also one of little catchphrases. So the two that are mine are span of control and it is what it is. Because there are going to be those days that I feel that I walk in and I had a complete plan of what I was going to do that day or what I was going to do that week, and something happens and it completely flops on its face. And in those times like, God, why don't you get frustrated? You can't do anything about it. There's things I can always do. There are things within my personal control in whatever job I'm in that I can make a difference. And so how can I understand my span of control and understanding everything else is going to be what it is, that I can move forward in within that little area that I have. So for me, it's understanding my catchwords and phrases that help me to understand and get me out of that so that I can continue to focus and move forward.
Margie?
Inspirational quotes are always so helpful, and they come from so many areas. I would say that the Teddy Roosevelt, the man in the arena. If you're not putting yourself out there, you may get bloodied, you may get knocked down occasionally, but you get back up and you keep going. The tenacity that's associated with that. And I just watched The Darkest Hour the other night, and there was a quote from Winston Churchill that said, "Success is never final, and failure is never fatal." Those two elements struck me in a very strong way, because you have to just keep applying yourself until the actual positive outcome happens. You see that across this entire community, where we're trying to solve big problems that have been there for some years and will take some years to unravel. But we get up every day and we apply ourselves to it, and I think that's really the key to movement.
Thank you. Maria?
My favorite question is why not? It kind of goes to, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. So my favorite question is why not to my team and everyone I've worked with. I will also share with you the other thing that really drives me. This is a quote from E.B. White, if anybody's ever seen my emails. I get up every morning determined to change the world and have a hell of a good time. Sometimes that makes planning my day difficult. Those are really my drivers, and I will share that I handed out a book to my entire team a couple of weeks ago from Simon Sinek, Start With Why. And we did the little exercise on the technologies curve with everybody in my staff to figure out where they are. But we gave everybody a copy. I gave everybody a copy of that book, so they're all looking at that now.
Thank you. Sylvia, last word.
Oh my God, Maria, we did something similar. Oh my God, that's crazy. Okay, I have two things. For my Lord of the Rings fans, given that, I'm the sci-fi junkie that I am, do you guys remember when Frodo is just despondent and he's like lying on the ground in Mordor and he's like, can't make it. And he's got this vision of Galadriel, right? In a beautiful meadow, like on the fern and on like moss, beautiful moss. And she says to him, if you don't succeed, no one will. That was one. And then the other one, actually, I give credit to Kelly Morrison, who used to work at Interior for me, and she works for Margie. Kelly, before she left, she has kids, and she's a big Dr. Seuss fan. So she gave me this quote, and she actually gave me this like stencil decal so we could put it on our wall. And then we moved, so we couldn't keep it. But it was the Lorax, and the Lorax said, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. So those are my two.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to turn things over to the audience. The mics are in the middle of the room. If you'd like to ask a question, please come on up to the mics. I'm sure our panel here will have some great advice for you. Oh, we start with online questions. Go right ahead. Jane, please. I can hear you, but I don't know if anyone else can. None of that hot mic.
Can you hear me?
Mm-mm.
Okay, maybe I can.
Just be loud and I'll try to repeat it.
Online says, how have you handled failure and setbacks in your IT career?
Okay, so how have you handled failures and setbacks in your IT career? Oh, Sylvia's grabbing a mic, and then we'll jump down maybe to Beth.
So first of all, it smart's really bad because we're humans, and so it hurts when you fail. So the question is, how do you deal with failure? I realize this is it's a big thing. I kind of have a little talk with myself, and I say, okay, are you going to put your big girl pants on, or are you going to sit in the corner and cry like a little sissy? And so I'm like, okay, because you're wounded. When something bad happens, you're just like, oh, you can be crushed. And it's really emotional. But it's also, I would say, this incredible opportunity to grow as a person, and also to, if you aspire to leadership, or you really come into what leadership is, I don't know how leaders don't experience failure to become leaders. because that experience of failing actually teaches you tremendous lessons. And I just say, like, if you do encounter failure, I mean, you've got to just pick yourself up, face the failure, look at yourself and say, what did I do wrong here? Why did this happen? What was my fault here? Don't be defensive about it. Own it. And then, like, you know, I think you just put your big old pants on and you get out there and you just, you know, you make yourself better. You learn from your mistakes and you try not to make them again. So that's how I deal with it.
I'll just very quickly add on and to what, you know, Sylvia said, that having been in those positions and things don't work. Okay, this didn't work, but you know what? I'm going to try something else that's going to get to. This is, if I have a target and that's where I'm going, and something didn't work, and it was, whether it's big failure, little failure, whatever it is, I'm going to figure out another way to get to there. So that's it. Just continue to say, you know what? Okay, I failed. Accept it, own it, put on my big girl pants, move on, and figure out something else.
There's a reason why they say that the greatest lessons learned are learned from when it didn't quite work. And the expectation that you would go back and take a hard look at that and adjust accordingly, but don't ever let yourself be disillusioned or deflated to the point where you're paralyzed. You have to continue to take action, and that first positive step builds upon the next one, builds upon the next one, and then all of a sudden, not only have you internalized that learning, but you've actually solved the problem you were originally trying to solve.
The only thing I would add is, so I work in a science organization, and scientists don't see failures. They have a hypothesis, they try it, they either prove or disprove the hypothesis, and they go on. You have to think about that with your failure. You tried something, it didn't work. What did you learn from it, and how can you fix it and do better the next time? We would not be able to, in our agency, be able to respond to Zika. We wouldn't be able to have found a vaccine for Ebola in a matter of months if we had scientists that failed and got discouraged. And the best things in this world have either happened by accident or learning through failure. So take that as a moment in time and pivot to the next thing so you can accomplish greatness.
Thank you. I had one last one, which is when you were growing up, who was your hero, real or fictional? Beth, you have to start.
I guess for me, my parents were really heroes for me. It was very interesting. So they were the ones that told me, you know, you need to be in science, you need to be in computer science in particular, that is the way of the future, and it's really where you should be. My mother in particular was very keen on public service and said that, you know, the best thing that you can do as in a career is to give back to the country by which you live and by which give you so much in the land of the free. And I think that helped me to guide me and to work hard and to expect success. If you put work into, you will get benefit out. And all of those things have proven very relevant and absolutely correct in the 20 plus years that I have been here. And so I always hear and understand what they have instilled in me, and that is that, you know, what I can be, and that there shouldn't be limitations. And I think that for all of us, that's what we would like to try to help and portray to all of you that are here today.
I'd like to echo what Beth said. I think one of the things that we have to think of, if you're raising children, boys or girls, is help them understand that anything is possible and to not self-limit in any way, shape, or form. Because when you tell a child that, yes, you can go do that, then that's what they do. They actually spread their wings. They actually believe in themselves. So I think most of us are lucky to have had that. From a professional standpoint, since I started out as a chemist, my hero was Madame Curie. And talk about those accidents of experimentation. She definitely was in that vein. And then later when I got into technology, Grace Hopper, you know, who actually runs, you know, is the face on the page of the foundation that actually encourages women in tech today. And who, if you haven't ever attended that conference, I would highly recommend it.
Growing up, the oldest with brothers and, cousins, I was generally the oldest. My dad, all the time, and growing up in upstate New York, there wasn't a lot there in industry. GE was moving out. My dad would always say, get out, there's nothing here, get out. Guess what? At 17 years old, I got out. So I will say that my dad, whether he remembers it or not, he always said, get out, there's nothing here for you. So surprise, surprise, when I graduated from high school at 17 years old, joined the Navy, and I left. And I left home, and I kept going. And once I joined the Navy, there were women out there like Grace Hopper. I had to know who Grace Hopper was. She was on my advancements exam so I could get promoted. I had to take tests. I had to know who she was. But she was an amazing lady, so if you've ever done any history or looked at it, she was amazing as far as, somebody who was out there and a trailblazer.
You asked who our hero was.
I'm sure it's a Star Trek theme right now.
Oh, Star
Lord
Trek.
of the Rings.
No, I wasn't going there, actually.
Yeah, who's your hero growing up?
Kind of more where Maria was, which is, I think, my hero in my life is my mother, just because she was somebody who came. She was really like a refugee from China after the communists took over China. Her family had to flee because they were killing people, so they ran for their lives, and she ultimately ended up here in the U.S., and they went from a pretty high social status to like having nothing, and she really had to rebuild her life here, and she's my hero just because it's just like she just taught me like this incredible resilience about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and just keeping on going on and having good values and working hard and all that stuff, and really like being so grateful actually to this country for giving us a chance to rebuild a life.
Thank you. One last question from the audience and we'll close. Please go ahead.
Hi, Chelsea Ward from Health and Human Services.
Hi,
Beth.
Chelsea.
My question is, in moving up the career ladder, what do you all lean more on the IT experiences versus any IT certifications, and if there is any IT certifications that you look for in your staff when hiring any potential candidates, which ones are they?
I've had exactly one certification, and that was probably around the year 2000. But it is important, and I do value schooling and education, and I do look for some of those things because I look for people who are motivated, that want to learn, that are taking some of this on by themselves and not just saying, oh, my employer will pay for that. No, I do look for people that are self-motivated, willing to learn, and willing to take courses and get training on their own. So those are some of the things that I look for in that self-learning, be curious, wanting to learn, and being able to take on those kind of things. Certifications are important, but I've also, you do have to know your stuff. You have to be book smart, but you also have the practical experience to go with it as well. And for folks that have certifications, they've been to school, and not a lot of hands-on, you got to start somewhere. So you might start at the bottom of the ladder, and you're going to learn as you grow, but those certifications and the education certainly help along the way.
I would say that staying current is very important, even if you had certifications from prior jobs. The two that I normally look for that are specific are the CISSP for cybersecurity, and then looking at program management for a lot of the IT professionals, and because a lot of the things that we deliver are programmatic, and they encompass not only the technology part of the equation, but they also encompass the ability to marry that with how do you get the funding in place, how do you do the acquisition, how do you do all of those things. But ultimately, I would also recommend leadership training, because what we find is a key success factor to everything we do is the people part of the equation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll just echo what Margie said, because the two that popped into my mind from a certification perspective is a PMP, which is a program management certification, because that has so much broad application across technology, but not just technology, but anywhere. because it not only helps you to be organized, to drive you for success in whatever that you're working on, but it also allows you to have a wide variety of different skills, because technology anymore isn't necessarily as much about the technology. It's more about making sure that you can have delivery, that you're working with the customers, and that you are making sure that you have the right acquisitions and you're being very financially sound. Program management will get you all of those. Obviously, a CISSP, if you're just coming out for a brand new cybersecurity perspective, and I will say for me, when I'm looking at jobs, I'm really only looking at the certifications if it's really entry level, because that experience isn't there. The majority of time, it's the experience, especially at the higher levels of positions, because you need to have that background to make sure you understand and are well-rounded. But definitely for the entry positions, the certifications become more important.
I just wanted to add on to what Beth was saying, because I came into IT from the mission side. I was not in IT when I started in the government. I was doing programmatic stuff in international trade, and I got into IT. And when I got into IT, I actually got for formal training, like in project management, enterprise architecture, ITIL, ITSM, operations, all that kind of stuff. And the training was helpful to me. So I mean, for me, the thing was I had something I was trying to do. And to me, the training and the certifications were more helpful to me, for me to be better at what I was doing, trying to do. So just wanting to add that to what everybody has said.
Thank you, and please join me in congratulating and thanking our wonderful panel today. Thank you. We'll now take a 5-minute break, and we'll be followed up with the fireside chat.
Yes, we have. Right, right.
Camera finally leaving? Yeah. All right, well, I will look forward to it.
This is your 2-minute warning. Again, we are going to start the fireside chat in just 2 minutes. If you could please take your seats, we'll get started in 2 minutes. Thank you.
And then you guys can pass back and forth. And then it's just the bottom.
I'll watch him. All right, I gotta turn this a little bit this way. I'm definitely gonna. Okay, and even though I'll kind of ask the questions that are really good. 5 and 6. Okay, I'm gonna try to. I usually try to get better. If I clarify, if you have something you want to say, feel free to share the microphone. Yeah, I just know it's ours too. I just know I have. We're gonna. No, we're not going to cover. No.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. I know. You must be looking at the talk about Yeah. That's I really I was searching for the political side. It's great. I'd love to hear some of that. Yeah. A lot of stuff going on. You're gonna have to give us a minute on that one.
Hi, everybody. If you could please take your seats so we can start the fireside chat, we greatly appreciate it. Again, please take your seats so we can get the fireside chat started. Thank you.
And as we get the fireside chat going, let you guys find your seats again. Thank you to our last panel. I hope that many of you in the audience who don't have the pleasure of working with some of those individuals every day like I do can see that it is a dynamic group. There's lots of stories, and you heard another theme that also came out in our first group. Over and over, you heard Joanne say, be curious. You heard Maria say, be curious. And that the path in is not always the same, and then the path once you are there is not always the same. So being open to those different challenges and understanding that the opportunities may come from somewhere unexpected. That's a fun part of the journey, is something that's very important. So this is our last panel. This one's going to be a little faster and a little shorter, but what we wanted to do for both the audience here and the individuals online, we were sharing stories of success and how we work together and move up together and support each other, but we're all at different places in our career journey. So this panel is actually Women on the Rise. So I'm excited to introduce these 3 ladies who are all at different points in their journey. And so I'm going to ask them questions that are both individual about their experiences as well as some of the mission and the things that they're doing. So first, on the end here, we have Brianna Mettle. She's a sophomore at the University of Maryland. She's studying information systems. She's pursuing a career in federal cybersecurity through the Government Scholarship Service Cyber Corps program, and this is a great excuse for her to get out of class today. So we are thrilled that she's here. Beside me is Mia Jordan. Mia is recently promoted to the Chief Information Officer at the USDA, Office of Rural Development, so we're thrilled to be here actually in her agency. She brings 15 years of diverse public and private sector experience to this role. She's been very engaged in supporting USDA's IT modernization initiatives, and she brings us the perspective of being on multiple sides of the page. And in the center, we have Claire Montanora. Claire is actually part of our U.S. Digital Services team, a team I get to work with very, very frequently, and a team that's doing some really exciting things. She is the lead for our vets.gov team. She brings years of innovation and technology solutions to inspire the team and to challenge the team to do things differently. and creatively, and she's got a fantastic mission to serve. So join me in welcoming these women. So you all are at different points in your career, and Brianna, I'm going to start with you around, we've heard lots of questions of how do I move up, how do I move forward, and how do we inspire more women? So what would you tell us about what inspired you?
So I kind of had a strange path getting here. I grew up wanting to be a lawyer. Both my parents were involved in cybersecurity, so I was kind of stubborn with I don't want to do the same thing. But as I kind of decided I wanted to do more policy-wise, I kind of gave in and started thinking about technology, as well as the fact that my generation is kind of the ones that grew up with very minimal technology as children, and then as we grew up we kind of grew with technology going on and becoming more relevant. So I just continued seeing it more in light, as well as the problems that came with it. So that's kind of how I got interested. And then going into school, I went into the business school, which I got into when I applied to Maryland. I went in undecided, and then I kind of started looking at the info systems major, as well as the School of Public Policy, which has a public leadership minor. And then University of Maryland also has a ACES program, so the Advanced Cybersecurity Experience for students. And that's what I'm double minoring in.
Fantastic. So you had the opportunity kind of to look at a couple of the different disciplines and put them together. That's fabulous. So Mia, can I pose that question to you? You came in both private sector, public sector.
Yes.
What drives you?
So what drove me into information technology, really, I started in the sciences. I was a biology major. I intended to be a doctor, actually. And, around my junior year in college, really discovered that I did not have the focus to continue, and I started looking at alternatives. From there, I joined the military and had an opportunity to go into communications, and was stationed at Andrews Air Force Base and was assigned to become a technical trainer. Initially, it was for doctors and nurses on their programs that they use in the hospital, and then the hospital went through its Windows 95 upgrade. I'm telling my age now. I was only 12. So
you look like it.
Thank you. So with that, it really just evolved. It evolved from a trainer to help desk, to actually working in a knock, skinning my knees, pulling cable under floors. I mean, I've done a little bit of everything. And so I've enjoyed it, though. It's been a stretch career. And what I mean by that is there is no job or opportunity that I've had that I've walked into being fully equipped. And I like that about my career and the experiences that I've had, because it truly stretches you to be something more than you would have imagined. And I think that that's kind of how I got here.
That's fantastic. So Claire, talk to us a little bit, the whole digital services model is unique, and that actually gives you some different choices, both around the path in which you get in and the things that you get to do. Talk to us a little bit maybe about that mission and why you're here.
Yeah, the digital service, for people who don't know a lot about us, we're a tour of duty model. So we are folks that come from the private sector, and we come on a tour of duty to do public service. So we come for, some people come from anywhere from 6 months to a couple years. And we are schedule a hiring authority, and we come in, and we are currently in 6 different agencies. We have 11 projects going on, and our projects are really amazingly well aligned with the President's management agenda, modernizing technology, data transparency, and accountability, and a really modern, workforce. The digital service has 50% of our team are women, and 60% of our leadership our positions in leadership are held by women. So it's a really diverse group of people. And the projects that we're working on are across, we're in the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, Small Business Administration, we're at GSA on login.gov. We are also, where I am detailed, is at the Department of Veterans Affairs, happens to be my favorite agency, and we're doing really transformational work there, helping veterans get access to the benefits that they have earned. So it is really, the whole group is really an amazing group of folks that come from all different walks of life. And one of the things that I have found most amazing about the team is we kind of got a rap originally as being all Silicon Valley people. We are from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Kansas, New Jersey, all across the country, and we look like Americans. We are a real cross-section of people from the United States. We look like our audience. And what I think is so important about that is we're building products for our citizens and the public. And we have learned a lot about bias. We haven't really gotten into a lot about product development in the conversations that we've had, but it's really important that the products that we're building and the technology services that we're delivering to the public are built for people, regular people. Somebody had mentioned earlier about getting the iPad, clicking on the link to get the iPad. Really making sure that we're building products that serve the public. And we really want the people that are building those products to have that empathy and compassion for the public. So the digital service looks like America.
It is a fantastic story about diversity and the things that you're doing, moving towards the connectivity to the end recipient of the services, and driving what we do, from that point forward. So we've talked a lot again today about success and kind of how somebody got to that path. But one of the things we wanted to touch on in this chat was what the journey feels like. And maybe we'll start here with you, Mia, about what has been the most challenging thing that you've had to address in your personal journey so far, and then we'll go down the line.
So right before I took this position, literally stepped into the position officially as the CIO for rural development, I was at a conference and saw one of my mentors, and they congratulated me. And they said to me, kind of at the conclusion of our conversation, he said, well, I just want to leave one thing with you. And he said, the most difficult task that you will have in this role is going from being a manager to a leader. And when he first said it, it didn't click. And I was like, well, I've got leadership skills, so I don't know what that means. But that's not what he was saying, right? As a senior executive, but ultimately as the CEO of IT, the way in which you operate is very much about establishing vision and establishing the course and direction that you want the organization to take. It's very different from being a manager in that when you're a manager, your tasks are kind of laid out for you and you execute against those things. And so when I inherited and walked into the door into rural development, I saw a lot of tasks that needed to be done. And I had the natural inclination to go and get those tasks done. And throughout this journey, I think that has been the most difficult part, is to really pull myself back at times to ensure that I delegate, but constantly reinforce what is the vision that I want for this organization. What are the incremental milestones that we're going to measure ourselves against to say that we're progressing towards that vision? And that's really it. I think everything that I've done prior to now has been very tactical, right? And this job is very much about being very strategic, and being able to pace your organization, because I am a fixer. I don't mind flipping the ship over, but I can't do that, right? And so it's just about, it's a matter of setting the pace, right, and setting the tone and vision, and you have to do that constantly. It's not a one-time briefing with slides, it is constant touch points with staff, either via slides or personally, face-to-face, right? So I think that's been the most challenging.
No, those were great points. Claire, maybe we'll get you to comment, but what you said about a constant dialogue and making it a conversation is one of the reasons that we're here today. And one of the reasons that we want to have events like this is making it an ongoing conversation. Those were great points. So, Claire, what would you say?
Yeah, when another panelist was speaking earlier about having all sisters, I had all brothers, and so and a lot of my career, I was the only woman in the room for a long time, and I found having all brothers was really helpful in training for that. And I had somebody that I learned from very early on, and sometimes you can learn from people what they do, what you want to emulate, and sometimes you learn from people what you don't want to do, and you see the impact of their behavior on a room or on a group of people. And this one person that I learned from, he was so smart, and he came into a room and he had all of the ideas. So he'd start off a meeting and he would intimidate everybody in the room, and he would kick off the meeting and tell everybody what he wanted to get done, and then everybody just parroted back the whole meeting, repeating back what he wanted to accomplish. And then the meeting would end, and then in the hallway at the end, after the meeting, we would actually have the meeting, because everybody was so afraid.
Meeting after the meeting and the meeting before the
to
meeting.
actually say anything different, because he was so determined in the meeting. And I then had a different boss who had a totally different style, and he was the last to speak. And I learned from him that was a really interesting style. And so you do learn from people just different ways of navigating your teams and navigating ways to be present in cultures and the way that you want to build teams. So I think that is just something you'll learn and something you'll gravitate to different people in your career. And so I think that is something maybe people find familiar, and as you're looking for mentors and as you're looking for groups that you find comfort in or that you want to be involved in, that those are kind of signals that you might want to be aware of as you're looking at groups that you want to get involved in.
Brianna, let me ask you that same question, but more, you're entering, right? You're looking forward into your professional career. Maybe you could phrase it in ways, how could the people in this room help, or what are the challenges that you're facing as you're making the decision about where you're going? So you can educate us.
Definitely. So I've been very lucky. Both my parents work, in the cybersecurity field, so there's never been, a lack of education in that sense. But obviously, college isn't supposed to be easy, but that's definitely more of the challenges I've had, because I've kind of had to DIY in a sense of what I want to do. So, a lot of my peers, they major in the business school, and then they also, if they're minoring also in the business school. So for me, I'm in the business school, I'm in the policy school, and then I'm in an ACES. So, figuring out a 4-year plan's a little more challenging, because I'm not pulling from the same gen ed requirements. I'm doing completely different. So I think it makes it more difficult and scares away some students that we're not making it easy, for them to get, if they're not really wanting to go into the engineering school, scaring them away from kind of creating your own. Since I'm interested in cybersecurity policy, I don't just want that technical aspect, but I also just don't want the policy. So kind of finding that balance on the spectrum, I think, has been the hardest thing for me.
That's good feedback, and I think maybe good feedback for us in the room as we're looking for candidates to cast the net wide and create opportunities, not just in a narrow band necessarily, but where people can bring multiple talents to the table. Thank you, that's good perspective. So our last panel talked a lot about career being a zig and a zag and, not necessarily having that 5-year, I think Sylvia said, I didn't have a 5-year plan. What's 5-year plan? But not having an absolute plan forward. But the next question that we wanted to walk through with you is, what are your thoughts around what might be next? Either the criteria, the piece of work, the challenge, the mission. What do you think might be next? Since you've got the mic, we'll start there. You kind of answered it a little bit for us, but what would you like the next step to be?
Do you mean like for me personally? So I got to finish school first, but
got that one.
Yeah.
Check that box.
So definitely just, finding internships. I find a lot of my best experiences have been with outside the classroom. As much as you can learn from a textbook, real world's not memorizing and taking tests, it's application. I think that's what a lot of classes and professors miss. So definitely finding just internships is the best thing for me, but then also, finishing my career. I'm an applicant for the Scholarship for Service, which is a really cool program that, you give back. So as well as UMUC has a really good graduate program that's really renowned for their cybersecurity. So I am interested, in going to graduate school and just continuing studying until I'm fully in the workforce, which I hope to do in the federal government.
Thank you. So, Claire, you've had the opportunity to do lots of things already. What are you thinking is next? And what would you tell the folks in this room about that?
I have no idea personally what I'm going to do next. I'm going to finish my tour of duty, which is really exciting, and continue to build some great products at the VA, which is exciting. I would say for people watching and people in the audience, there are incredible assets and opportunities online. I would say, selfless plug, go look at the U.S. Digital Service, usds.gov, and see what's available. Look at our mission, really, it's amazing, and apply. But there's Code for America, Girls Who Code. There are so many resources. There are free classes for people. There were a couple people asking about coding camps. There are lots of courses that are available online for free to even see if you might be interested in coding. There are lots and lots of things that are available. Our mobile phones are amazing devices that give us access to enormous resources. So please go look. There are robotics camps. There are, tons of things that are available through Boys and Girls Clubs, through the YMCA, in local communities. So there are lots of resources that are available for almost anyone out there in our communities. So making these things available to kids at any age level. You can volunteer for robotics, being a captain on a robotics team and just volunteering in your community. Even if you have no experience, you can just show up and be a mentor in any of these environments, and they just welcome anybody. You don't have to have a technology background. I have done that, and it is just fun to be around kids that are interested in technology, and just help inspire them to get involved. So,
fantastic. Well, and I want to add something to Claire's. What you heard there is a lot of passion, as well as I've spent time with each of the agencies. Every one of them has an exciting mission. You are very eloquent and passionate about the VA mission, and that's sometime, if you're interested, it's a great story, and great things they're trying to accomplish. But with IT and cyber skills, as we talked about at the very beginning, having those skills and being really good at what you do opens up a broad opportunity to connect to multiple missions. And the missions of every one of the agencies is very, exciting. So that's kind of part of it too, is what makes you passionate. I think our last panel said that. Where is my passion, and how do I use the skills that I've built to drive towards that passion? So Mia, you shared with us kind of the big, one of the challenges and the things that you're looking at in your role now. what are you learning from that, or are you focusing on as you think about what your professional journey continues to look like?
I think one of the unique benefits of being in this position today, timing is everything. And so are opportunities. And I think we talked a lot about that earlier, that you're right, there is no straight path. Life does zig and zag. And it comes down to you being prepared when you get to that zig or that zag, right? And so where we are right now within USDA with these centers of excellence and working with the Office of American Innovation, I see those centers of excellence as an opportunity, quite frankly, from a very selfish perspective, of having an opportunity to build a brand, right? There's so many, within the centers of excellence, there's just a lot of opportunity to do very diverse things, right? Everything from cloud to supporting the IT infrastructure modernization that's happening, to data analytics. There's also the call center initiative, contact center initiative. There's so many new and exciting things to be able to learn and also deliver those things, right, to the American citizen. And so it just helps to really broaden my expertise personally. And so when I think about what is next, I honestly think that the sky's the limit, right? I honestly believe that being here right now just really strengthens my core competencies and my ability to walk almost into any industry and be able to say, hey, I've done that.
Fantastic. So we have our last question is something close to one of the questions that was asked the other panels. We talked about in that group, who was their hero, but as you look at, career as a journey and different points, could each of you share a little bit about who your role models have been, and even if they're at different points in that journey? I think that was an important point that we heard from the last panel, is that your journey may take you different places and you have different demands at different points in time. So who are some of the people or the types of role models that have been important to you so that this group can, look for those same types of role models?
So I'll start off with my mother is my first role model. First and foremost, my mother has been in business for herself for over 40 years. And not just the being in business as an entrepreneur that makes her my role model, but it was her ability to be able to adapt as the industry changed. She figured out how to morph, right, and to adapt with it and to adapt her business model. I think that that's impressive. My second role model would be my grandfather, who ended up having an elementary school named after him while he was still living. And he became a principal at 24 years old, just to give you some perspective. And he served a total of 42 years as a principal of a school where all of his children and grandchildren went through that school. So that's pretty impressive.
That's impressive. I'm looking at Department of Education folks down there. They're nodding aggressively.
Yes, but lastly, I think, those two are kind of like my foundational heroes, so to speak. But I've been able to learn how to take a little bit from everyone. I think you put it very good, where you said, there's things that you learn from people that you don't want to do, and there's things you learn from people that you do want to do, and you want to emulate those qualities, and you want to build on those characteristics. And so one of my heroes, I won't call her a hero, I'll just say one of my role models, quite frankly, is in this room. I'm going to embarrass her, so I've never told her this, but like Janet Stevens.
Now you're going to make her tear up.
I'm sorry. No, but she has been such a great model as a female CIO that Janet is so knowledgeable. You can tell that she studies, she reads, she talks with people, she's constantly trying to get more information, and so she's just really a great person that I love. Thanks.
You just got lots of new mentors, lots of mentees.
Wow, that's lovely. My mom, I think that my mom and dad were both social workers. I became the capitalist social worker in my family.
A capitalist social worker.
Working, my background is in healthcare, and I'm very fortunate to work at some companies innovating in digital healthcare, and it has been a real privilege to be able to bring credible, trustworthy content and services and tools to the public for free, and create a market for that, which didn't exist, but technology really allowed that to happen. So that was really amazing, but it happened because my parents' spirit of public service. And that really led me on my entire career. So that is really amazing. I think that there were really business leaders in my life that inspired me and allowed me to, gave me opportunities, but they pointed me in directions that I didn't really anticipate going in, mostly because they recognized things in me that I didn't necessarily recognize in myself. I can't code. I am a good team leader. I'm more creative than I am anything else. And so by being given these opportunities, I think that they really, they were my champions, and I give them credit for that, you know, helping me guide my career. And there were many of them, so I can't really, I'd be here all afternoon giving them all credit. So I'm really grateful to a lot of different people for helping guide my way. But I think giving people that are different and don't really fit a mold opportunities is also a really important part. When people were asking earlier about certifications, and you know, people's capabilities don't necessarily always come across on a resume. Sometimes it is about somebody's spirit and the way people show up and their initiative, and they have other types of intelligence sometimes that doesn't necessarily come up in paper, come across on paper. And sometimes when you see that in someone, and I just encourage people to take risks. When you recognize that in somebody, take a risk sometimes, and you'll get an enormous payback on occasion.
Thank you.
So for me, like both you ladies said, probably my parents, especially my mom. So she didn't obviously go into the cybersecurity field right away. She was chemistry major in her first degree. So, you know, she kind of didn't go into it, but she grew into the field, and then she grew alongside it. And specifically, looking forward, so a lot of the educational aspects of it, which I think is really important. And then with that, both her and my dad have always just been very supportive of me, as well as my brother, especially, going into the field where it's a lot of technical aspects. Once I decided and kind of gave in that, cybersecurity is what I was kind of interested in, they were very supportive of the fact that I didn't want to do technical, I didn't want to engineer, I didn't want to code. I really am interested in that policy aspect, as well as having enough technical background, obviously. But they were very supportive, encouraging that I don't have to fit, like you said, that one mold, as well as just from kind of a different perspective, giving me kind of opportunities. I know we didn't get to the question, about recommendations, but I was lucky enough to intern with OMB last summer, and obviously
We did not shamelessly plug that.
Yeah, but I love all of them. But a lot of kids don't get that opportunity because they need paid internships, which I think is one of the issues, that we're losing students to the private sector because we're kind of segregating those kids that don't have. Can't risk taking a summer off without getting paid. But both my parents were really supportive of this great opportunity for me to have, and I'm really grateful for that. But then further than that, all the experiences I've had, state, local, and federal government, all the women I've worked with, they don't mess around. So all the people, all the women that I've kind of encountered are all really strong, intelligent women. So I give credit to them as well.
Thank you. Yeah, they don't mess around. I would definitely use that term for the folks that we've seen on the panel. I do want to thank the three of you. I think we heard a couple of common themes, both learning from mentors and people that we want to emulate, not being the person necessarily that demonstrates things that we don't want to repeat, but that's a learning opportunity as well. And you heard a comment from each of the three women here too about having individuals see something and recognize something in them and give them encouragement. So I think that's something that all of us can do with all of the people that we work with is look for those sparks and help create those opportunities. Each individual talked about something a little bit different, but those were opening up, new opportunities. So I am going to ask our panel to stay here. And before we move to the closing, a couple of comments. I want to thank, on behalf of the CIO Council, and since the CIO Council lead is one of our one of our coordinators, I want to thank the folks who put this event together for us today. So Angelica Dorch, Trey Kennedy, Jessica Cummings, and Catherine. And then Netta from the USDA, if you're here. Oh, there you are. Thank you for getting all the folks in, out, and making all the logistical arrangements today. We really appreciate this. We know that this is not a small thing to pull off. Coordinating everyone who is here and getting all of our tech to work. So thank you for creating this opportunity for all of the women and for all of our people. Because this kind of involvement actually benefits all of us. So before I am going to turn over to Gary, thank you again to the ladies in the fireside chat. Thank you to all of our panelists. And for those of you who came here with us today and asked questions, as well as those who are watching on the phone, I know that every one of you has a very busy schedule, but these are important discussions and dialogues. And the panelists were bold in sharing their stories. So I hope that you found something that motivated you or was inspirational, or that you'll go back and share with your teams, or maybe in these ideas of things that motivated people, you'll find something to motivate someone else on your team. Thank you for being on this mission. We do have a fantastic mission. Yep. And as we close, I'm going to challenge each of you to do a couple of things. You've heard these themes through every one of our panels. Continue to be bold. Continue to be curious. And we're here because we're dedicated to being inclusive and ensuring that that's the kind of dialogues that we have. So challenge your teammates, challenge yourselves to serve our mission through the IT and cyber capabilities that we bring, but we're empowering the missions that are serving our nations. So thank you all again. I'm going to ask you to pick one woman in your life network, a friend, a coworker, a woman who's in schools, maybe somebody in your family, or someone who comes to you and says, how do I keep moving forward? And share the excitement about what they can do in the cyber and technology space and what they can do in the federal government space. We'd really like to have them here. Together we can do amazing things. I look forward next year when we gather together. So Trey, Angelica, don't give me the stink eye there, but we want to come back and continue to celebrate accomplishments and results. As I opened, I shared we have been challenged to deliver on some things that are very, very important. And so when we come next year, we not only want to share our ongoing stories about the journey, but we're going to highlight the success stories that we've achieved over the course of this year. So we are very happy to be here at the USDA today, and we appreciate them giving us the opportunity to use this space. So I'm going to ask you if you would please welcome to the stage Gary Washington, the CIO of the USDA.
So they say all good things must come to an end, and that's no different today. We're having this great and important event today. So on behalf of the Department of Agriculture, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. I'd also like to thank the Federal CIO Council for its continued focus on the importance of fostering a diverse and inclusive federal workforce, especially in IT and cybersecurity. And I would also personally like to thank our federal CIO, Suzette Kent, for being a champion and change and bringing us all together today to celebrate the success of women thriving in federal IT. As many of you know, the need for IT and cybersecurity talent is growing every day. And in order for the federal government to successfully transform, enhance, and modernize the services and products it delivers to the American people, we need to employ, develop, and retain a dynamic and agile workforce to be successful. So as the USDA embarks on executing on the President's management agenda, it's our diverse community of federal workforce, contractors, fellows, and interns that will enable us to transform our technology, improve our customer service, and strengthen our business processes so that we can achieve our mission. And an example of that, I'm quite sure all of you have heard that USDA has downsized from 22 to 8 CIOs, mission area CIOs. Well, 50% of those mission area CIOs are women, and they're very talented women. Today's event is emblematic of the federal government and its commitment to valuing, fostering, and leveraging outstanding talent. I have the great privilege to work and collaborate in a diverse and inclusive environment. More than 1/3 of my fellow colleagues, CIO colleagues, are women. But as we heard today, we still have work to do to help the next generation of female technology and cybersecurity professionals grow. Each of you plays an important role in helping women rise and expose our young women to the enormous opportunities in IT. Now is the time to act, and all of us have a role in making this happen. And I encourage each of you to engage, inspire, and empower women through mentorship, professional development, investments, and by celebrating their professional achievements. So in closing, I hope you leave today's event understanding the importance and continued need for women in federal IT and cybersecurity. However, the responsibility for creating and maintaining a diverse workforce and inclusive workplaces is all of ours. Once again, thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you all at next year's celebration. Take care.
Wait for all the media flash.
Well, I'm getting ready to go over to the West Wing with Don.
Oh, okay, good.
I wanted to do the media thing, but we have to
Well, that's
go